Hey everybody, you're watching We the Fandom, where we discuss comic books, pop culture, and the fandom experience. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to see more content. How's it going everybody? Jacob here at We the Fandom, and for today's comic book review, I'll be reviewing Men of War issue number 1. This book coming out during the New 52 era, which I know everybody craps on the New 52, but some of their stories are pretty good, I think, and I really enjoyed the Men of War series. It only has 8 issues, and one of those issues is kind of a prequel that involves a kind of a supernatural slash science fiction story. But I was asked by somebody if there were military comic books, specifically ones that weren't so. Basically, someone looking for comic books that weren't so superhero focused. And I happen to remember this storyline. So, Men of War, issue number 1. It's got a primary story and then a backup as well. And that backup being a story about Navy SEALs. It's kind of more of like it gets a little bit more into like the politics of war, especially in dealing with an enemy combatant that's technically a civilian. But for this main story, let's see here. Basically starts off with a character named Corporal Rock, who, if you're a longtime DC fan and know about Sergeant Rock, he's been a popular mainstay kind of military character within DC Comics for decades. And they've done kind of different iterations of him in different continuities. But this one has Corporal Rock as the, I guess, grandson, possibly, of the original Sergeant Rock. And he's kind of getting chewed out by superiors. One of them is his sergeant, basically talking about how he has a bad record of insubordination, though that record usually ends up, his decisions, despite being insubordinate, usually end up in a tactical victory for his men. And the sergeant is basically goading him into figuring out why he hasn't ranked up yet. And they seem to imply that with his record, he could rank up despite the fact that he constantly keeps getting in trouble, kind of implying that he's purposely getting in trouble to avoid ranking up to sergeant. And he basically states that he doesn't really think of himself as a grunt. He does what he wants to do, but he also doesn't want to, he doesn't really want to be a leader. He wants to continue doing the work that he's doing. And they're basically telling him that he's going to be meeting what in the Air Force they call higher tenure, which is if you're like E1 through E4, you can only stay as that rank for like, I don't know, they recently changed it, like 8 to 10 years. And if you don't manage to rank up to sergeant, then you can basically get discharged. So it sounds like they're threatening him with discharge if he doesn't step up his performance and actively take a more leadership-based role. But the sergeant who was grilling him, basically they end up going on a mission. And this writer, I didn't research him, so I'm not sure if he's actually like former military or something, but he puts little things in there to kind of, explain military jargon to people. For like this instance, this caption, it says, "That ain't a saw, the hell's that?" And then, so it says squad automatic weapon, which, I don't know, I assume if you're reading a war comic for what's predominantly a superhero genre, then you probably are interested in that kind of stuff and you already know some terminology. But basically, Corporal Rock and his unit, led by the sergeant, they're going on a mission into the Middle East, a Middle Eastern country. They don't really say. And they fly in, they parachute into the zone, and basically this red streak kind of appears, and they're not really sure what that is. And he keeps this streak person kind of like blows up tanks, destroys like a fort and all this stuff. And when I first read it, it almost seemed like they were kind of implying that Superman had entered the battlefield, but it doesn't confirm that. It kind of just says it's basically just them saying that they don't really appreciate the presence of superhumans within on the battlefield. But this comic also has some really good like imagery, and you kind of get the description of like what it's like to be on the battlefield in a firefight. This is kind of like a monologue from Corporal Rock. He's like, his words evaporate. In a fraction of a second, the air pressure drops. Moisture hangs in the air. Something breaks the sound barrier. So you kind of get some visual imagery there. And basically, the issue ends with Sergeant Rock basically getting hit by an explosion, and his sergeant dies, and he ends up getting handed his dog tags, and the sergeant tells him, "Hey, Rock, you're a sergeant now." So basically, in one issue, he went from being a corporal, kind of defying the leadership role and doing what he could to stay out of that, to now, hey, you're on the battlefield. Your sergeant just died, so it's time for you to step up and take that role now. And then there's a backup story pertaining to a group of Navy SEALs. And it kind of deals with, like I said before, it kind of deals with more of the, they basically end up in a firefight and they take shelter in a house, and a woman comes out of a room holding a gun and pointing it at them. They try to get into a conversation, de-escalate the situation, figure out a way to kind of move on from where they're at right now without having to kill this person and her family. And so, whereas before it dealt strictly with Corporal Rock, now Sergeant Rock, getting over his attitude of not wanting to be in leadership. This is a separate story that kind of gets more of the, I guess, political aspect of going to war and dealing with civilians, you know, kind of the topics that people talk about at home when they talk about like the atrocities of war and stuff. But yeah, Men of War, DC comic. They have issues 1 through 8. I read this on the DC Universe app. If you enjoy war comics, I would suggest it. I know there's a lot of movies and TV shows out there that try to throw out military jargon and obviously don't know what they're talking about, but this comic book was actually pretty good. It was written by Jonathan Venkin, penciled by Phil Winslade, colored by Thomas Chu, and lettered by Rob Lay. And it's definitely a recommend. Issues 1 through 8, part of the New 52 universe. I do believe there was a Men of War series prior to the New 52, and you can go back and read like really old war comics from DC. But that is all I have for you guys today for today's comic book review. If you guys are new to We the Fandom, please hit the subscribe button. If you enjoyed this video, please smash the like, and I'll see you all next time.